I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could you please make sure that your phones are either on silent or turned off? Seeing that we don't have anything for public forum, we're going to move on to see the minutes of the regular meeting of May 24th. Could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mrs. Kaiser. And a second? Mrs. Dingman? Any questions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Your hand's not still. You can put Mrs. Allen down just for in favor, because she raised her hand for both. She doesn't, she only gets one vote.
Oh, okay.
Any abstentions? I'll take them all. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on. Could I have a motion for the two financial reports, D1 and D2? Please. Mrs. Kaiser, and a second by Mrs. Allen. Any questions on these? Yes, ma'am.
Just comments, maybe a question. For the financials, it was stated that the transfers were not made in April, on the April report. However, the transfers that took place in May did not cover all of the transfers that needed to be made in April or May. This past year, there's been questions monthly regarding the financials and how the transfer requests and purchasing are not following board policies, New York State regulations, and OSC requirements. In less than a month, it's going to be a new year, and before purchases are made next year, will there be training for the staff who are involved to make sure the board isn't asked to accept improper reports?
So I think that was ended with a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not that I know of. That's something we can work on.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to G, the consent agenda. Could someone give me a motion on
Did you say E or G?
E?
Oh,
Yep,
sorry.
yep, sorry. So E, which would include G.
And F?
And all of the consent agenda. Mrs. Dingman, would you, everything?
I do.
Okay. A second?
Can we amend for, E, basically just pull out 15?
I'll make that
Where?
change.
Do you have the damn thing? Or 15? Can you help me understand what you're
It's
pulling?
Dave Welcher.
Is, yeah.
Okay, so
So
where,
everything
Go to the
but
table.
15.
oh, 15 on the table.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's,
Oh, I.
She's looking at the papers, I don't know if they're.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's
Alright, so,
numbered.
okay, so let's back up for just a second, because we need to table the policies, since it's just a first reading.
But
So-
we're not doing the policies right now.
We would just need a motion to table them. That's part of,
The consent.
No, that's H.
The consent agenda is.
okay.
E, wait.
Okay, so, motion on the floor is for the consent agenda up until H, without 15 on the list.
Yes?
Yes?
Correct.
Okay. Could I have a second for that, please? Okay, Mrs. Kaiser. This consent agenda thing, it's really like throwing me off.
I have a question real quick. Actually specifically on Mr. Welcher, what is CCLC, Community Center, LC, what's LC?
21st Century Community Learning Centers. It's the grant.
Okay,
21st Century grant.
gotcha. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yep, similarly, What is TOSA?
TOSA.
TOSA?
It's a teacher and special assignment.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, when you're ready.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Degnan?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. I would take a motion for, I'm just gonna say F15 since it's that fair. Okay, Mrs. Dingman in a second. Mrs. Kaiser? Any questions on this position? When you're ready.
Mrs. Degnan?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Abstain?
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to H.
G. G.
G was included in the,
And sound.
Oh,
yeah, okay.
Perfect.
No, no, I'm glad that you asked, because there's a good chance I didn't read it right. Okay, could I have a motion for H1, the first reading of the policies listed there? Thank you, Mr. Nodine, and a second by Mrs. Allen. So first reading on the policies, if there's any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir?
Well, I have a couple concerns, actually.
Okay.
7552 is a pretty controversial topic. It's kind of a hot topic in politics and in everywhere you go. I'm a little concerned with the timing, that we're doing the first reading now, and then the vote will actually be had when we have brand new board members that are sitting for their first meeting. So that was kind of an eye-opener for me, and I felt like it was a concern, because I remember my first meeting when I was sitting here, it was like, yes, I had a few crash courses, some people had given me a little advice on what I was doing, but like digging in and looking at policy and understanding what I'm reading and what my goal was, to say the least, I wasn't prepared for that,
Mhm.
okay? And I feel like this is it's kind of a big item. And secondly, I think that policy in particular could be written a lot better to represent all students, and that should be given a second look by the board and not just the policy committee.
Mrs. Allen, did you want to speak to why the timing, or just?
Sure, so the committee has been meeting over the past month to go back and push through any drafts, anything that's been presented to us as drafts. This fell into that, but I appreciate, you know, the pause on that, because I too agree, this is a very sensitive policy, so I love the idea of maybe reconvening on it. I am not in favor of a large portion of this policy, so I think it's a great idea.
I guess I would just encourage the public to go ahead and go on the website and take a look at it as well if they have any concerns.
Any suggestions for additions or any thoughts?
I think the way
since-
it's written isn't really protecting all students, I don't believe.
Okay.
So that's my concern, is that it seems to be written to protect a group, which is good, but protecting another great majority of students needs to be considered.
I would absolutely agree.
Okay.
And I think the majority of our constituents would find that to be a good thing to look at.
Any other comments on that?
When we had met, there was a discussion that since this is already an existing policy,
Yeah.
the verbiage that was proposed was required. So is that something that should go back to the attorney and say, hey, let's give us some
Yeah.
feedback on that?
That's a great idea too.
I do have a question about that. Was this policy reviewed by the attorney?
Not this particular one. This is not one that we pulled aside for a special kickback.
Attorney review?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
There was not, because there wasn't a lot of changes
Right.
within the policy.
Right.
And what was presented was a requirement.
So you're saying that potentially, reviewing it, as Mr. Nodine is suggesting, there might not be any wiggle room on this particular policy?
It's my understanding.
I believe there are possible changes that could be made that would be equal for all, and I think it should be given a look.
No, I definitely, I
I'm not
just
gonna
wanted
be here to
to,
follow up on that, but I want my opinion to be known that I believe there is
There
room
has
for
to
a
be.
legal answer for this policy, yes.
Yeah, so I would suggest that the committee look at what changes they wanna make, and then, we can run those suggestions, those proposed changes by
okay,
our attorney to see if we do have room to make changes.
great.
Appreciate that.
Easy enough.
Did you have another one, or was it just that one?
That's really the only one that I found a lot of red flags with.
Okay. Any other, questions, comments? So we'll table that until the next meeting, please.
We're tabling all,
No,
or,
just 7552.
well, it still can be a
It's
first
all
reading.
just a first
Right,
reading, so
exactly.
we wouldn't, we're not voting on any of these.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Right, so
There's
that's,
nothing to table. You're voting on the first reading, right?
We don't
We just had an
need-
opportunity to make comments.
Right, we're not.
so there'll
we
be a
don't-
second reading at the next meeting, and we'll vote then. Okay? Which one are you talking? Which is, where is mine? Oh, fantastic, all right. Man, off my game today. All right, we're gonna take a really quick break here, and Mr. Taylor, could we back up so you could maybe talk about your tenure appointments in your building?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure, well, we're very lucky to have Mary Kate Corrales, who's here in the back. So, she's been a reading teacher with us for the past few years, and, like during COVID, she was helpful in taking a classroom on, and, a different structure is what it is. So we're thrilled to have Mary Kate with us, and the other teachers we have, are not present this evening. Mrs. Pitcher just had a baby, so,
Understandable.
Yeah, Sammy Jr. a couple of weeks ago. So we're thrilled to have Mrs. Pitcher and Mrs. Shannon as well. And Olivia Sweetman, I'll take Julia's, but because she's working speech in our building as well. We're a great group of people. And of course, Haley Bybee is here too, and so we're super excited about having Haley, and joining us in a different role for next year.
Great, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Smiley.
Yes.
I have to tell you, we're all getting used to this consent agenda, so bear with us as we try to navigate
We
through
go
this.
back, we keep going back, it's okay.
But didn't require a motion, so we'll just stop and thank people. So thank you for all of your hard work. Okay, moving on. I would take a motion for some, all, several, if somebody could give me one, under H, new business. Anybody?
We're looking at what, 2 through 8, is that right?
If we would take them all, I would take them all.
I'll give you 2 through 8.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nodine, in a second.
How about 2, sorry, how about 2 through 9?
Mr. Nodine.
Is it on the,
Next
Yeah,
page.
flip it.
just continue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It goes to
It's
my
not
bad.
just me, if everybody,
Well, sounds like an auction.
Well, then can't we go
nope,
through?
we could take 2 through 9, Mr. Nodine, okay,
I
thank
will
you.
amend to 9, yes.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Allen, I assume you'll second?
I will.
Thank you. Okay, so we are looking at H 2 through 9. Questions, concerns? I believe that we are just establishing contracts for several of these positions. That's correct?
I have a concern regarding the calendar adoption for the, whether or not the federal holiday, I understand it's a federal holiday, but it's still required to have collective bargaining to be giving that off, for the group SNAP. They have a need for collective bargaining. It's not reflected in the new contract that's being proposed.
Or H2 is what you're referring to? Is that correct?
H2.
The calendar,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all looking at the same thing.
So these are really benefits agreements, they're not, in my past, I haven't done that, we can look at that, but federal holidays, they're entitled to them off, so.
Oh, but you're not required to pay them. It's a public gift of funds without collective bargaining.
I've never heard it put that way, so I can look into that for sure.
Can we just break that down for a minute, so, cause I feel like I don't totally understand what, so they're entitled to it because it's a federal holiday?
No,
No,
The time off as a federal holiday.
they're not required to have time off or to have it paid during that time. There are people still working on Juneteenth
yep.
in other school districts, and
Well, I would say these are salaried people, and the board is approving the calendar and the time off, so I don't see it, but I can certainly check with legal on it.
Okay. Other questions?
I'm confused. Are we saying, or are you saying they're not required to get this, but that's what we're proving, like,
yes.
we need to get this into some sort of contract, or?
I'm saying if you're gonna be giving somebody a paid holiday, then that would be part of, it's subject to negotiations. And there's a contract, item 12, that does not include that.
For both of these? Just one? Just one.
I don't know what the both is. We,
Because there's two calendars, I'm guessing.
oh, okay. So I guess what I'm wondering is if we figure out there needs to be a correction, could there be, an amendment to the contract to include that? If it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I mean, we can easily do an MOU to fix that.
Is that the only contract we would have to be concerned about to meet Mrs. Newman's?
I would almost,
Yes, because CSEA includes it.
I was gonna say,
It was negotiated this past summer.
Right.
So in these calendars, it's just the administrators, it's not,
Mhm.
so
So
page
we
one and
just
not
need
page
to
two?
amend now. The contract.
I'm sorry?
The contract would just need to be amended to reflect this calendar, correct?
Correct. We could just do a memorandum of understanding. Yep. Easy enough.
Okay. Other questions? Go ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Noda,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes.
Mrs. Damon,
No.
Mrs. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Matthew.
Yes. Okay, moving on, E10, approval of the request for equity transfers. Let's take this one by itself, if you don't mind. Could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mrs. Allen, and a second by Mr. Nodine. I believe that there were some late questions that were answered recently.
I still have concerns, thank you so much. We, the Board of Education, are required to have a reserve plan that is adopted by the board. Okay? We at Red Creek do not have such a plan. Asking for each and every, and that's the terminology that was changed, does not mean it's legal. For example, the TRS reserve cannot have $500,000 added. The TRS the unemployment reserve already has 119 years worth of money in there for expenses. So why are we adding more? It was indicated and verified that the fund balance projection was $226,000 in April. And I had a hard time believing that and asked for the breakdown, which we were told we would get it, but that did not take place. The property tax report card, a document that was approved in April by the board and submitted to SED, did not have one increase to the reserve estimation. So how do you have 500,000 for each reserve, which we have 8, so that's $4 million. How can you say that you're just looking for that overall approval? Why isn't there more specific plan? And how do you go from 226,000 up to 4 million? It wasn't that long ago.
The words up to.
Do you know that you can't
It's
have
giving us.
$500,000 into the TRS reserve?
Oh, no, I understand that. But it's giving us the option to put up to $500,000 in each of the reserves based on what the board and the auditors and the district decide.
Well, we're being asked to fund it without being given any information.
At this point, yes, because it has to be done by June 30th by law. So what I'm asking the board to do is give authorization in order to do it, and then at a later date, we'll then decide where we're going to put the reserves.
So you went from 226,000, and now you're saying up to $4 million.
No, up to 500,000 we have the option of putting up to 500,000
Into each
into
reserve.
Yes,
There are 8 reserves.
yes. This
So
is,
that's
it's a
4 million.
standard resolution.
It's not
That-
standard.
It is.
Other
That allows-
districts have
that allows the
specific
district-
amounts.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, when you're ready.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Nodine?
Yes.
Mrs. Damon?
No.
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Okay, can I have a motion for E11, please? Thank you, Mrs. Kaiser. And a second by Mr. Nodine. Questions?
So this budget adjustment, this authorization for end of the year budget adjustments does not follow our current Board of Education policy. If purchasing policies were followed, we would not be asked to adopt something that is just stating, go ahead, the guidelines, the policies, the rules, the regulations, they don't matter. And when the rubber hits the road, the questions should be asked, that it will be the Board of Ed, if this is approved, will get the blame. Yeah, the Board of Ed said, go ahead, make whatever changes you want to. Our rules, our policies, they don't matter. We were told to go ahead and make this reserve. We were told to go ahead and make these transfers. I don't understand why it's so difficult to just follow the rules. They're put into place for reasons. And this reserve that we're being asked to approve is saying, it's okay, don't worry about it.
Nothing with this resolution has changed since last year. It's the same, it's,
No. The other one, there was a change. I put the up to 500,000.
Last year,
Or this
they
one.
put dollar amounts though, in the board, during the board meeting. The initial presentation did not, but by the end of the night, they had dollar amounts
in the end of the year budget adjustment resolution.
in to fund reserves. When is our audit committee meeting? Do we have that established yet?
I do not think so.
Okay, are we gonna have an audit committee meeting before the audit begins? Or is this, and it's okay, I understand that there's only a few of us that are concerned about the financials. Is it something that individual board members, because there's a policy about indicating our concerns, is that just something that you want us to meet and send our concerns to them individually?
I think that the plan was to have a conversation about the audit committee at our reorg meeting when the new board members were here and also the new superintendent. If it's necessary to have that conversation ahead of time, then I would say that we could do that, but I thought that that would be best when the new board members were here as opposed to prior to that.
Will our auditors be here before the reorg meeting? They typically come twice.
I can't answer that question at all.
Historically, they have not, but I could ask them.
You just asked if they're coming before reorg?
To the board,
Yes.
was that to the board meeting or to the district? Is that which is?
Which are
the-
you asking? He's asking.
Are they coming?
Do you mean to
board
present to
meeting?
the board meeting?
No, that's in
Right,
October.
right. Audit before the next. I think is the question.
They'll be in the district, yes. And they've already done the pre-audit work. Then they'll be in the district in August to do the actual audit.
Is your concern for questions prior to the meeting or to actually meet before the
Yes.
meeting?
So we can express any concerns we have so they can follow up with that.
Okay, so, would they still be here after July 10th?
Yes,
They'll be here in August.
they'll be here, they'll be with the district in August, whether they're here or not. A lot of the work that they do is in the CBO.
So, all I was thinking was that even with a reorg meeting on the 10th, we have not adopted a Board of Education calendar for next year. We could add in an additional audit committee meeting to talk as a group, or we could put questions together before that to make it a little bit more beneficial for possibly our new board members. Are you thinking a different schedule?
No,
Or do you
I
think-
don't have a schedule. I just would like to make sure that concerns are heard this year.
Okay, so I think that would work if they're gonna be here in August, unless anybody has any other comments for that, but that would give us an opportunity to meet as a group. Maybe have some more thorough discussion and also bring new board members up to speed. Okay. Other questions about E11? When you're ready.
Mr. Nodine?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Damon?
No.
Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you. E12, could I have a motion for that, please? Mrs. Damon, and a second. Mrs. Kaiser? Questions? When you're ready.
Mrs. Damon?
Yes.
Mr. Nodine?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you. We'll have something to. Okay, moving on, any questions on the administrative reports?
I have a question,
Yes.
too, actually. Does the district provide a reimbursable meal under the federal and state guidelines for the moving up day picnic?
Say that again? Sorry.
Does the district provide a reimbursable meal under the federal and state guidelines? It was indicated by Mr. McDonald that the student council pays for meals for staff and students for the moving up day picnic. So why would they have to pay for students if a reimbursable meal, meaning all of the guidelines are met? Why would student council have to pay for meals that should be automatically reimbursed by the state? Doesn't have to be answered right now.
No, I'll look into that. I'll find out what that is.
Did you have another question?
I have one other question. It also states under the same report, I'm assuming it's a typo, under the capital outlay project starting in July, because don't you mean that it's June, because it's required that the capital outlay project is approved or completed by June 30th. So how can you start in July if it's required to be completed and paid for in June?
I believe that was a scheduling issue with the contractor, and they were not able to get it done by the end of June.
So your capital outlay is being completed in 2024 and it's required
Yes.
to be completed in 2023. So are you going to
Yes.
not have a capital outlay project for 2024?
No, we will also.
How can you do that? You can only do one.
We should have this discussion.
Yeah.
I have a question also on the same report. The transportation department, what is, so that the entry-level driver training facility, what can we just explain a little bit what that is,
Sure.
please?
With the new federal guidelines, they made it a little bit more difficult for the districts to do their own training. So what BOCES did is they went ahead and they became a training center. And we were sending our trainees to the BOCES to get trained. We were actually loaning them one of our buses. When Steve came on board, he was able to find a way to actually become our own training center.
Awesome.
So it was very low cost. He went ahead, he signed up for it. He was able to get Red Creek as a training center. So now we are now in-house training our own drivers once again.
Great.
It was the way they did it before.
Yeah.
Before the federal government had other regulations that they put in place.
That's great.
So I believe we're
Yeah.
one of the few in our BOCES that are doing that.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Okay. Okay, before we move into executive session, I have a couple of quick things. So, we're gonna embarrass Mr. Nodine really quick.
Are we?
So, I won't even name the years because it'll just put years on his life here, but Brian's been on the board for quite a while and has done a fabulous job, and we're gonna miss him tremendously, so. Thank you so much. Brad snuck out, so we'll embarrass him at graduation in the hallway if I have the opportunity. The other, this one's gonna be a little more awkward because I see Raina quickly trying to put it in an envelope. So, yeah.
Nothing to say here.
I think that Dr. Macaluso probably loves the attention almost as much as Mr. Nodine, so we obviously didn't plan on having him here quite as long as he made it, but we just really appreciate all of your work and effort in making the drive out here. At least it wasn't through snowy time. So from the board and the administrative team, your secretary, we just want to say thank you very much. Oh, Raina took too long and it, yeah. Cute card though, right? So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Nodine. Okay, well, we have just one really quick thing for executive session, so I would take a motion to move in for particular personnel. Thank you, Mrs. Dingman, and a second by Mr. Nodine. Thank you very much. Just look the other way for a minute.